Our new home was finally completed. I was so excited that our new life was about to begin. Then, my in-laws suddenly arrived. "We are going to live here from today, so you have to get rid of your parents." What? I didn't understand what was going on, so I asked my husband for help. But he took a deep breath and said to me,
"That's how it is. So you need to tell your mom and dad."
With that, they began to move their things into our house. My in-laws were happy and excited to see the inside of the house. Then, I coldly told them, "Do you know whose house this is? My name is Rebecca. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. My husband Tom and I have been married for 3 years. We have no children yet, but we are still happily married. However, my parents are getting older, and their legs and back are getting worse, and that worries me. So I decided to talk to my husband about the possibility of living with my parents." Then, my husband said,
"I don't have a problem living with your parents."
He told me,
"It will be good for you and your parents. It kills 2 birds with 1 stone."
"Thank you, Tom. I am so glad that I married a kind-hearted husband." We were ready to move in with my parents. However, it was difficult to move in together right away. My parents live in the suburbs, far from the city center, and it would be very difficult for both my husband and I to go to work there. Neither of us is allowed to drive to work, and it would be difficult to live with my parents. But it is also not practical to invite my parents here. My husband and I currently live in a rented apartment. This apartment is for 2 people, so it is too small for 4 adults. If we were to have a child, it would be even smaller. There are only disadvantages for both parties, so I came up with an idea. "Hey, why don't we take the plunge and build a new, spacious house?" My husband's eyes lit up when I gently suggested it.
"I like that idea. Let's build a new house where everyone can live comfortably."
My husband agreed, and we immediately started preparing to build a house. When I told my parents about this, they felt bad about it. But when I told them that we were building a house with our future in mind, like when we have children, they agreed. It warmed my heart to see my parents apologetic but happy. After that, my husband and I went to a real estate agent and discussed everything in detail. Considering my parents, it would be nice to be close to a hospital, and considering my job, it would be nice to be close to a train station. We discussed in detail whether the house would be elderly compatible, how many floors it should be, and how large the house would be. I wanted to ask my parents for their opinions, but they said they would be happy just to live with us, so they left it to me. Instead, my husband made a lot of suggestions and was very proactive, which was very helpful. Every time we came to an agreement, I was excited to think that we were getting closer to our dream home. After consulting the internet and real estate agencies, as well as discussions with my husband, we were finally ready to build a new house, so we decided to hire a contractor to help us. Finally, we are all set to build a house.
Building a house is really hard work, isn't it?
And because we were working, we can only discuss things a little at a time. We were exhausted from all the preparations, but we were still very happy. We had a lot of discussions, and the layout of the house was perfect for us. It took a lot of effort to get to this point, with lots of inquiries to real estate agencies and information gathered on the internet. But now, all we have to do is wait for the house to be completed. Although there was still a long way to go, we were still excited and looking forward to it every day. But then, My in-laws found out that we were building a house, and they started contacting me all the time. Rebecca, we came to visit. I heard that you're building a house. Yes, that's right. I think it will be done by the end of the year. That's amazing. I'm so glad Tom is doing so well. Why don't you come by sometime and we'll talk about it in more detail? What? Okay. My husband and I made a weekend trip to their home when my mother-in-law called. When we arrived, they greeted us with big smiles on their faces.
Congratulations on the purchase of your own home. Isn't it exciting to build a house?
My father-in-law said to us, looking as happy as if it were his own. Yes, I'm really looking forward to it.
I want to make sure that everything is done to perfection. But I also want to hurry up because I want to live in it as soon as possible. So my mind is very busy.
We were excited all the time by this cheerful topic.
Oh, I want to see the floor plan.
My mother-in-law said so, and my husband showed her the floor plan he had been taking pictures of on his phone.
Whoa, this is a very spacious house. There is a lot of room for wrestling.
That's because we will be living with my parents for a long time, so we will need this many rooms.
Living with your parents?
My in-laws looked at my husband with wide eyes.
You're moving in with Rebecca's parents? Yes, that's right. Rebecca's parents have been having some problems with their legs and hips lately. That's why we decided to move in together. That's why we bought a house.
I see.
All right then.
The tone of my mother-in-law and father-in-law's voice suddenly lowers. Well, I suddenly get why my in-laws wouldn't be thrilled about this. I decided to change the subject so we don't have to talk about this anymore. How are you guys doing these days? Are you feeling okay?
Well, we're not really feeling any different. That's right.
Same old routine, I see.
Well, let's talk about your new house. I wonder which room your parents will occupy. Oh, we're thinking about this room.
My husband didn't seem to notice the change in my in-laws' attitude. But when my in-laws found out that my parents were moving in with us, they didn't seem amused. I guess they didn't agree that my parents were taking priority over them. I felt bad for them, but I still thought that since I had built the house with my parents in mind, they should consider my wishes. However, it seems that my in-laws were not that mature. After that, the construction of the house proceeded smoothly, and every time I went to check on the house, it was taking shape more and more, and I was crossed that my husband was right and I want to live here as soon as possible. But I also wanted to make sure that it was built properly. I went with my parents to see the house on construction, and they both seemed very happy, and I'm very happy to have been able to show my filial piety in this way. But there was one thing that bothered me a little. My husband has been in touch with his parents a lot lately. On weekends, he has been visiting his parents more and more often. Are you going to visit your mother and father again this week?
Yes, I am.
You have been going more often since the beginning of this year.
I have to take care of my parents, right? That's why I'm visiting them on my days off.
That's very kind of you. Do you want me to go with you? To be honest, I was worried that my in-laws might be depressed. I know they will be sad that they won't be the ones living with us. So I thought I would help out with the aftercare as well, to show my filial piety to my in-laws. But my husband said,
"No, it's okay. I'm fine on my own,"
and went off on his own. I thought it was fine if he said so, but I told him that I'm here if he ever needed me. Time went by and our house was completed. When the day came for us to move in, My husband and I got into the car with all our belongings and head for our new house with great excitement. When we arrived at our new house and saw the exterior, we were impressed. I couldn't help but let out an uncontrollable wow at the sight of our new home. Our new home was finally completed. I was so excited to know that our new life was about to begin. When we have kids, I'm sure I will be cooking while watching my husband and kids play in the yard. It would be nice to have a barbecue with everyone. Imagining our life in our new home made me even more excited. My parents had just gotten stuck in traffic, and it was taking them a while to get here. They told me I could go ahead and go in the house, but I told them I would wait for them and try to tell my husband about it. Then, suddenly my in-laws came. I was so surprised that I stared at the car they drove here in. Why are they here? Then they got out of the car and came to me with big smiles on their faces.
We are here. What an amazing house.
This is a home that you can brag to your friends about.
Isn't it great? It's all thanks to Rebecca having great taste. I see. You really do have good taste, Rebecca.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. Then, my in-laws started to upload luggage from the car. I was so surprised that I rushed to talk to them. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you uploading that? When I asked them why they were doing that, they started to say something surprising.
It's to put our belongings into the house, of course.
Excuse me? We are going to live here from today, so get rid of your parents. What are you talking about? My mother-in-law sighed and said, Normally, a wife is supposed to serve her husband's parents, so we should live in this new house. What?
Now go call your parents. We are busy moving our stuff in.
I didn't understand and asked my husband for help, but he sighed and said to me,
That's how it is. So you need to tell your mom and dad.
What are you talking about? This house was built for us to live with my parents. I can't allow you to do this. I got a little emotional and told him so, and he got frustrated and got angry with me.
You heard what my mom said. A wife is supposed to serve her husband's family. We can think about your parents again in the future.
I can't believe him. It seems that my husband has been brainwashed by his parents. No, maybe he was like them in the first place, and he's finally showing his true colors. Come on, you two. Get your stuff out of here. That's what my mother-in-law said, and they started to carry out my belongings. My parents and I haven't even entered the house yet. They just went in without permission. Whoa, this is so nice.
The house is magnificent.
As they looked around the house with gleeful expressions on their faces, I said to them coldly, Do you know whose house this is? Amanda paused at my comment and looked at me. It's Tom's, of course. I hope you're not going to say that this is your home as a couple. I won't allow you to talk as if you have a right to it, when Tom is supporting you and has built you such a magnificent house. My in-laws accused me before I had a chance to explain myself properly. Apparently, my husband has not explained our financial situation to them.
Tom built the house in the first place, so how can he just knock it down and let his wife's parents move in?
I know, it's a bit of a crazy story at that point. I feel sorry for Tom. I couldn't take it anymore. I don't know why I had to go through all this while being misunderstood. I see. If you insist on living in this house, then I will have to ask Tom to return the money I paid to buy this house. When I said that, my in-laws looked at me with quizzical eyes.
How much money did you pay for this house?
Probably chump change, right? $100? My in-laws laughed at that, but my husband kept quiet. His face pale. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Are you proud of yourself to come all this way and not tell the truth?"
No.
My husband became confused when I said that to him. "What are you trying to say?" My mother-in-law asks me. My husband didn't seem to want to tell them himself, so I had to explain to them. I bought this house with all of my savings, so if you want to live here, please pay me the $500,000 it cost to buy this house. When I said this, their eyes widened. Then they looked at my husband to confirm the truth.
Tom, is it true?
Did your wife Rebecca really buy this house? When questioned by his parents, my husband nodded quietly, as if he had given up.
Rebecca bought this house. Rebecca is already the head of the department at her company, so her salary is much better than mine.
Oh no, but you've been with the company a long time.
Yeah, and you've got a good college education. You get paid well, don't you? No, actually, I've made some pretty big mistakes at work. I'm not moving up the ladder at all, and I'm taking a pay cut because of it. Now I'm making less than a new graduate salary.
When my husband confessed to everything, his parents were horrified. Oh my God, Tom! Then, in a complete change from their earlier attitude, my in-laws began to plead with me. Rebecca, I'm sorry for the terrible things I said to you earlier. We were wrong.
I apologize, and please forgive us, and let us live in this house.
Huh? That's what my in-laws said, and they even got down on their knees and begged me.
Please, it's my fault for not telling my parents. Please allow them to live with us.
I was beyond angry and disgusted. I can't allow you to do that, no matter how much you say. I told you I bought this house to live with my parents. If I can't live with my parents, there is no need to buy a house. That's why I'm asking you to pay $500,000 if you want to live here. We don't have that kind of money. Then I will have to ask you to leave.
Well, wait. We've already sold our house. If you kick us out of here, we have nowhere to go.
Please, Rebecca, let us stay here. Your parents can stay with us if they want. What are these people talking about? Where else would a couple and their parents all live under one roof? It's impossible. Give it up. If you sold the house, you have some money. Why don't you rent an apartment with it? I said coldly, and my parents-in-law suddenly began to shed tears.
To tell you the truth, we have recently made a mistake with our investments, and we're in debt. I sold the house and used the money from my retirement to pay off the debt, and now I'm penniless. I'm well past retirement age, and my wife has been a stay-at-home mom all her life, so she can work now. So you're the only one we can count on.
They are trying to make this sound like a sob story, but I think it's simply their own fault. If you're going to depend on me, depend on your son. I have no obligation to support a stranger.
But we are your in-laws.
That's right. Why won't you help us? I'm sorry, but I can't stay married any longer to someone who tries to take over the house by force like this. I will be divorcing Tom.
What? Hey, wait a minute, Rebecca. Don't tell me you're divorcing me.
No, I can't do this anymore. I want you out of this house right now. When I said divorce, he began to panic, and my in-laws tried to stay, begging me again. But I will not tolerate them anymore. I told them I would call the police if they stayed, and they freaked out and ran away. My husband was very calm and said,
I'm still your husband, so I have the right to stay here.
But when I told him, if you stay, I will file a lawsuit and kick you out, he turned pale and left immediately with his belongings. If his workplace found out that I was taking him to court, my husband would be fired. My husband knew that, so he left in a hurry. After they left, my parents came to replace them. They were surprised that my husband was not there, but when I told them what had happened, they were very surprised. They thanked me for protecting them. I wish my husband had me more understanding, but I guess that's just the way it is. I'm glad I got rid of those selfish people before we had kids. After that, the divorce was finalized and I was on my own. I'm now living a comfortable life with my parents in a newly built house.
You know, you're an excessive self-conscious person. You know that?
What?
You only feel that way because you think that she's harassing you.
No way. I mustered up my courage to consult my husband about it, but instead of being understanding, he blamed me.
If you don't like it, then why don't you just leave? But, well, you don't have a home to go back to since your parents are both gone. Haha.
My husband snickered at me as he said that. I clenched my fists and glared at him. Fine, I'll go back to my parents' house. My name is Gloria. I'm 30 years old and I work in a company. It has been 2 years since I married my husband, Manny. I first met Manny while I was at work. We were both in charge of a project together. And since we began working together many times, we gradually became closer. My husband was 3 years older than me and I was attracted to him early on, partly because he was much more mature and stable. When a project we were working on together came to a close, he invited me to dinner, and we began seeing each other privately as well. Not long after that, we started dating and got married a year later. One of the reasons I decided to marry him was because of his kindness. My mother died when I was very young, and my father also died of illness when I had just started working. My parents were originally from the countryside, and I hardly had any connections with our relatives, so I had no one to rely on and was left on my own. My husband felt sorry that I had no parents and often took me to his parents' house for dinner. My in-laws were very kind, and my mother-in-law, Tessa, told me that they had always wanted a daughter, and I felt the warmth of family for the first time in a long time. After that, I visited my parents-in-law's house several times, and each time they were kind to me, so I thought I could build a good relationship with them even after marrying Manny. And even after we got married, I visited my parents-in-law's house regularly. My in-laws never changed their attitude after I married my husband, and they always greeted us warmly. Oh, I am so glad that you married Manny, Gloria. I was worried about him because he is my only son and it was hard to find a good wife for him. Thank you so much. I was really happy to hear that from my in-laws. But then something very sad happened. My father-in-law fell ill and passed away. When my husband and I rushed to the hospital room, Tessa was all in tears. My husband was also really shocked by the sudden event. I had thought I had found a family again, but I was so sad to have lost one so quickly. Tessa was so depressed that she was not going to be able to prepare for the funeral. I took over for her and proceeded to make arrangements for the funeral. I wanted to do whatever I could do to help her. My husband and I made the funeral arrangements together, and we were able to hold the funeral without any issues. Many people attended my father-in-law's funeral, and everyone gave him a good send-off, saying their goodbyes. And when the funeral was all over, my husband said this to me.
Since Mom must be lonely on her own, why don't we move in with her?
It was a proposal to move in with Tessa. Normally, I would have hesitated, but I immediately agreed to move in with Tessa. I had a good relationship with her, and I had no parents who I could take care of. I wanted my husband to take care of Tessa as much as possible, and I was willing to help him achieve one of those things by moving in with Tessa. My husband was very happy when I agreed to his suggestion.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Now I won't have to make my mom feel lonely.
Soon after, we moved to Tessa's house and started living together with her. Even after we started living together, Tessa was really kind. I made fried chicken today. Wow, it looks very delicious. You're always working so hard. Eat up. Thank you so much. Like this, we were spending happy days as a family. But little by little, Tessa's attitude started to change gradually. Oh, Gloria, you're getting in bath right now? Huh? Yes, that's what I was planning to do.
How dare you?
Manny hasn't even gotten in the bath yet. Oh, I'm sorry. I heard Manny had a drinking party today, so I thought he might be home late. You don't have to make excuses. You're becoming shameless day by day, aren't you? Huh? Oh, I didn't mean it that way, but I'm sorry. Tessa began to complain to me about everything since then. I was bothered, wondering why her attitude had changed like that, and one day I found out the reason. Gloria, can you just do something about this? Huh? What are you talking about? When are you going to get pregnant and have a baby? Finally, Tessa said what had been bothering her. It has been 3 years since you got married to Manny, right? I think it's normal to have at least one child and show my grandchild's face to me. Tessa seemed to be angry that we couldn't have children. I am sorry. We are trying to have a baby, but we aren't in a hurry too. We were just talking about how it's a blessing once we have a baby and we should wait for it to happen naturally. Are you making excuses like that again? You really are so dishonest, and your attitude is so bad. You brought Manny into it too, and made it sound like it wasn't your fault. Is it because you were raised by a single parent? Excuse me? I was stunned to hear her say such a thing. I didn't think these words came from Tessa, who had been so kind to me until then. After that, Tessa began to verbally abuse me. If you are a wife, you are supposed to stay at home and support your husband. But you're so arrogant to push through your own selfishness and continue working. It must be because you were spoiled all your life. You never have children, you never quit your job, and you are a really bad wife. I have never met a woman with such a terrible attitude like you. Every time we saw each other, she would say things like that, and I became more and more stressed. I wondered where Tessa, who was so kind to me back then, had gone to. And Tessa mainly began to bully me when my husband was not around. My husband did not know that I was being treated that way by Tessa. But I could not stand it any longer, and decided to talk to my husband about it. Manny, would you please tell Tessa that she has been treating me badly for quite some time now?
What? Treating you badly?
Yeah, she's been saying some pretty heartless things to me. When I said that, my husband looked annoyed and scratched his head.
Is that true? I don't think my mother would do something like that, though.
I didn't think Tessa would ever treat me like this either. But lately, she's been really aggressive with me.
You know, you're an excessive self-conscious person, you know that?
What?
You only feel that way because you think that she's harassing you.
No way. I mustered up my courage to consult my husband about it, but instead of being understanding, he blamed me. And after that, Manny and Tessa started to pick on me.
Why do you eat the same food as me when I make more money than you?
You're right, honey. She should just only eat the leftovers.
That's right. Oh yeah, Mom, let's go out for some nice Italian sometime. Just the two of us. She has no right to eat nice meals, so let's make her stay at home.
Sounds good. Just you and me. You'd better clean up around the house while we're gone. Tessa and Manny enjoyed excluding me from the family. They would turn away my clothes for laundry, only prepare dinner for them and not me, and always tell me to take the bath last, then drain the water from the tub before I could even get in. They did this to me every day, and I was getting tired of how they were treating me. In the end, I just couldn't stand it anymore. Can you both please stop this? What in the world did I do? I asked for help because Tessa was treating me so badly, and now you and Tessa are bullying me.
If you don't like it, then why don't you just leave? But well, you don't have a home to go back to since your parents are both gone, haha.
My husband snickered at me as he said that. At this moment, something snapped in me. There was nothing more I could say to him. I clenched my fists and glared at my husband. Fine. I'm going back to my parents' house.
What? Your parents' house?
My husband widened his eyes and then laughed out loud.
What are you being so stubborn for? Your parents are gone, so you don't have a home or place to go back to, do you?
I'm not being stubborn. I'm leaving here because I can't keep going on like this with you anymore.
Oh, really? Is that so? Then just pack up your stuff and get out of here. I got scammed by marrying a useless person like you who can't even get pregnant with our child.
I couldn't believe that I was married to someone who would say such terrible things to me. I lost all affection for my husband at once. As I was packing my bags, Tessa came over here. You're finally leaving, huh? I'm so glad to get rid of this parasite from our family. Get the hell out of here. Don't ever let me see your face again. Tessa would say such terrible things to me like that, but I completely ignored her and continued to pack my bags. Later on, after I finished moving out, I went to the city office to pick up the divorce papers and mail them to Manny. Manny immediately returned the signed divorce papers, so I filed them, and my divorce from my ex-husband was finalized. I then focused on my work, but about 2 years after my divorce, I fell in love again when I reconnected with a childhood friend, Tom. He and I had gone to kindergarten through high school together, but we drifted apart when he went out of state for college. And after my father passed away and I sold our house, I no longer had the opportunity to visit him near his parents' house, which made it even more difficult for me to see him. It just so happened that I was having drinks with a classmate from high school when someone called Tom over and we met again. Then we catched up, talked about what was happening in our lives, and we started seeing each other as well. After that, we began to go out, and then found out that I was pregnant. So we decided to get married, even though pregnancy came first. I had met his parents many times since I was a child, and they treated me as if I were their own daughter. We then bought a house and lived happily together with our newborn child. Then, it was around that time, I suddenly bumped into my ex-husband again.
What? Hey, aren't you Gloria?
When I turned to him, I saw my ex-husband and a young woman with a really heavy makeup on next to him.
What are you doing here?
I was standing in front of the apartment building where I lived at the time. My husband had told me he had forgotten something back at the apartment, so I had gone ahead and took the elevator down.
This is in front of a luxury apartment building. Do you even know that? If you just stand there like that, people will think you're suspicious, you know?
My ex-husband said as he snickered. The young woman next to him also said, I mean, you already look like a suspicious person. We just met and she was already being rude to me like that. I ignored her, but my ex-husband didn't like it and began to pick on me.
Hey, how dare you ignore me? I'm sure a poor and parentless person like you lived a miserable life in a really cheap apartment anyway, right?
My ex-husband began to assume such things about me and began to bully me once again. Then finally, Tom came out from the entrance.
I'm sorry, Gloria. I went back inside since I realized I forgot to bring extra diapers.
So that's why you were late, huh?
Huh? Do you know these people?
He's my ex-husband. It seems like he happened to walk by here and began to pick on me. If you hadn't forgotten something, I wouldn't have had to see that prick's face.
I'm sorry.
I'm just joking, honey. It's true that this guy is a prick, though. I looked at my ex-husband contemptuously. My ex-husband's face turned pale when he found out that my current husband came out of the apartment and that Tom and I were living in the same apartment and even had a child together.
You're living here? Plus, you have a child.
Yes, I am. Manny was in shock. I guess he was shocked that I, whom he had made fun of earlier, was more successful than he was. And since it was a good opportunity, I told him something. By the way, when I left your parents' house, I really actually had a family home to go back to. My father was a wealthy man and owned several properties. Before he died of illness, I inherited his properties so that I could receive the income made from his properties. The family home that I lived in with my father was already sold when he died, but it sold for thousands of dollars, so I had a good amount of savings. When I left, I lived by myself in one of the rooms of the rental apartment my father owned.
No way. You're wealthy? Why didn't you tell me that when we were married?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not so sure, but I thought I'd keep it from you. Maybe, subconsciously, I didn't really trust you or Tessa. But I have to give myself a pat on the back for the way I used to be. Because both you and Tessa were bullying me terribly. And now you're changing your attitude towards me after finding out that I'm wealthy. I'm really glad we had a divorce before you found out about how wealthy I am. Thanks to you, I'm happily married now, and we're blessed with a child. Oh, and since I was able to get pregnant, if you can't have kids, maybe it's because of you. Well, I'm gonna go now. If you start hanging around here, I will report you immediately. As I said this to him, my ex-husband's face got even more pale, and it seemed like he couldn't keep his mouth shut. The young woman next to my ex-husband said, "How lame," and let go of her arm that was around his arm, and walked away by herself. I got into the car with my husband and our child and left. A little while later, the general manager of the company where my ex-husband worked came into the office where I worked for a business meeting, and I decided to ask him about my ex-husband. The manager looked a little awkward and told me about Manny. He told me that Manny had made a huge mistake at work since then and had been transferred as a demotion with a pay cut. But he said that Manny had become arrogant to everyone around him, refusing to admit his own faults. And as a result of his demotion, he started going to pubs and bars to vent his stress out and started to spend a lot of money on drinks and women. There are rumors that he has been paying quite a bit to the woman he met there, and he has even been using his own mother's pension in order to pay for the women. In other words, he is spending Tessa's money without any permission. But Manny was still unable to do his job properly, and the company was wondering when to fire him. And it was around that time Manny began not coming to work without any prior notice. So the company fired Manny. When I asked him when he began to do that, it was right around the time when my ex-husband and I met again. I was sure that he had paid a lot of money to that woman at that time and had been dumped by her. So he stopped coming to work because he got depressed. Tessa probably would never have thought that her own son would become unemployed, being fired from his job, and that he would just be all depressed in his room. I think it's nice that my ex-husband took the fall on his own. And I think I'll forget about my ex-husband now and live happily ever after with my current husband and our sweet little child. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in our next video.
Don't mess around, you scammer. If you didn't have any savings, I wouldn't have married you. I was planning to spend my life leeching off your money. Damn it. I never expected my husband to be such a despicable man. I had reached my limit with my husband, who kept insulting me. And then I came up with a forbidden revenge. This can't be true. As I looked down on my astonished husband, I smirked. My name is Aliyah, a 34-year-old office worker. I've been working for a company since graduating from college, for over 12 years now. Although I had been devoted to my work and had been given a decent position in the company, I was far behind in my private life. Many of my friends were getting married and having children, and my parents were starting to ask me when I was going to get married. I had lived for myself until now, thinking that I would be happy as long as I was devoted to my work. But when my parents said they wanted to see me in a wedding dress, and my friends said that marriage was a good thing, and my heart began to waver. According to my friends, marriage is also about making your family happy, not just yourself, and it can be done while working hard at your job. After hearing that, I became interested in marriage. However, I knew that the partner I choose is the key. I wanted someone who understands my devotion to work and was someone I could chill around. Although looks and income from work are somewhat important, I didn't place too much emphasis on income because I could earn my own money. With that in mind, I began looking for someone to date with the intention of getting married. Then a friend told me they would host a mixer, so I decided to participate. I was nervous at my first mixer, but it turned out to be a normal drinking party atmosphere, and I felt relieved. The men who participated in the mixer were all classmates from university who have decent jobs. Among them, I talked a lot with a guy named Bill. Bill was 1 year older than me, and because we were close in age, we had a lot of common topics to talk about. He had a good sense of humor. It was fun to talk to him. At my first mixer, I felt like I had found a good person. But at that time, a woman named Cindy came between us. Hey Bill, having fun? Aliyah, is it? Can you please give up your seat? I want to talk to Bill. Huh? Oh, sure. Go ahead. Overwhelmed by her aggressiveness, I gave up my seat, and Cindy stayed with Bill the whole time. At this rate, there is no way Bill and I will get any closer. Thinking that, I gave up on the mixer and decided to focus on my meal. Cindy is much younger and cuter, and she's probably better for Bill anyway. The other men had already paired off with other women, so I waited for the mixer to end, feeling a little bitter. But after the mixer ended, Bill asked me for my contact information outside the store. I didn't get to talk to you much, Aliyah, so how about we meet up and chat at a cafe sometime? I was surprised, but very happy. And for the first time in a while, I felt like I remembered what it was like to be in love. From then on, I exchanged messages with Bill and met him at a cafe on our days off. We talked a lot, and I thought we were really compatible. Being with him just felt so comfortable. I'm not the type to be aggressive, and I think I've been pretty cautious in my few past romantic experiences. But with him, I thought I could marry him. We continued to deepen our relationship naturally, but we weren't officially dating yet. Then, Cindy suddenly contacted me. Cindy was a junior of a friend of mine, and we had exchanged contact information before the mixer. She was like a little demon, with a completely different personality in front of men than in front of women. She had seemed selfish even when we first met, and it seemed like she had her sights set on Bill. So she must have seen me as her enemy. What's this about, Cindy? Cindy said she wanted to meet me and talk to me after work, so I agreed with some caution. Can I ask you straight up? You don't think you were going to date Bill, do you? I do want to date him. You're really out of your league, aren't you, Aaliyah? Huh? What do you mean? I know you are aware of this, but I'm also after Bill. Yeah, I figured as much. There is no way I'm not going to win, right? I'm younger and cuter than you. And you are already an old lady. You. Do you really think I'll fall for such a cheap provocation? Being young isn't the only positive factor, you know. Actually, I have a lot in common with him. Don't you have a huge generation gap and struggle to hold a conversation? Aaliyah, are you trying to compete with me? Don't you think that just because you are young, you can have everything your way? Cindy and I were in a confrontational state, ready to fight each other. I think we both had pretty scary faces, but I can't afford to lose to such a young girl. I seemed to be more competitive than I thought. As it was my first romance in a while, I consulted with a friend who had invited me to the mixer, thinking that she might suggest something that would help me, as she was also Cindy's senior. Cindy likes to take away boys that others are interested in, like that. My friend's frankness surprised me a little. Is she really such a bad person? Well, that's why I didn't want to bring her to the mixer. But she found out accidentally. If you're going to fight Cindy, it's better not to lose your pace. Just be yourself as usual, and you'll be fine. Okay, got it. Thanks. If my friend said so, I should follow her advice. So I didn't try to be too aggressive and continued to interact with Bill as usual. Then one day, Bill confessed his feelings to me. Can you date me with marriage in mind? What? Me? Are you okay with me? Huh? What do you mean okay with you? Oh, never mind. So, what's your answer? Yes, of course. Great. Thank you, Aaliyah. And so, I started dating Bill. That meant I had won against Cindy. I was happy that I could be with the person I liked and that I had won against her. Cindy didn't contact me in particular, but according to my friends, she was quite upset. After that, Bill and I continued our relationship smoothly, and about 6 months later, he proposed to me. For the first time in my life, I tasted the pinnacle of happiness. Even though I was always busy with work, it was great to be proposed to. My parents also liked him, and I liked his parents as well. We had a face-to-face meeting with both families, and we were able to have a successful wedding. My friends and coworkers also celebrated my wedding grandly, and I was very happy. After that, we started our married life. Welcome home, Aaliyah. I'm home, Bill. Oh, something smells good. Today, it's herb grilled chicken. Yummy. Thanks, babe. My husband comes home earlier than I do and takes the initiative to do household chores. He always cooks dinner for me when I come home, so it really helps. It seems like we could continue to have a happy married life together. But that kind of happiness only lasted for the first few months. After that, our relationship deteriorated rapidly, and it all started when my husband asked me something. By the way, how much do you have in savings, Aaliyah? Savings? Why do you ask?
Well, I was thinking that as a couple, it's good to know each other's savings, you know? To have an idea of how much we need to save for something like a future home.
I see. That does make sense.
So, how much do you have saved up?
I have about $30,000 saved up right now, I think.
Huh?
$30,000? When I answered his question about my savings, my husband's eyes widened and his mouth dropped open. What? What's wrong, Bill?
No, nothing. Is that your entire savings?
Yeah, that's how much I have right now. My husband let out a sigh and said he was going to take a bath before walking away from the conversation. I was left wondering what was going on. From his reaction, I could tell that he was upset that my savings were less than he had anticipated. I was angry that he would be so openly upset about my savings being low. I still didn't know how much he had saved up. The next day, my husband began acting very cold towards me. He would ignore me when I greeted him in the morning and would only prepare dinner for himself, even if he came home earlier than me. I couldn't help but feel angry that he would act this way towards me. But in the midst of all this, something unexpected happened. About 2 weeks after my husband started giving me the cold shoulder, I started feeling extremely sick and left work early to go to the hospital. There, I found out that I was pregnant. I was shocked but overjoyed that I was carrying a life inside of me. I thought that my husband's behavior would change once he found out we were having a baby. I'm pregnant. Upon returning home, I immediately told my husband. He had a startled expression on his face and looked serious.
You're planning to having a child, even though we have no savings?
Of course I am. Are you seriously suggesting I get an abortion?
If we have no money, we may have to consider that option. Besides, your salary won't be fully paid during maternity leave, and expenses will increase when the child is born, right?
Are you serious? I can't believe you made such a statement. I couldn't believe my husband said something like that. Unbelievable. Don't you have any empathy? I never thought you were that kind of person. I became emotional and raised my voice. Then, my husband became angry.
Don't play dumb, you scammer.
What? Scammer?
If you had no savings, I wouldn't have married you. I was planning to spend my life leeching off your money. Damn it. You work for a big corporation, right? Your salary is definitely higher than mine. Yet, you have no savings. That's why you are a scammer. Got it?
I couldn't believe it. I never imagined that my husband was such a despicable person.
Let's get a divorce then.
No, I won't.
What? Why not? I never said we should break up.
What do you mean? Even when I asked, my husband just shrugged and didn't give me a reason. After that, my husband started to say terrible things to me.
What's the point of having a child if you are a spendthrift? It's impossible not to save money while working for a big corporation. Marriage to a woman with no savings is a failure.
every time we met. My husband said such things. If he was so unhappy, he could have just left me. But for some reason, he didn't want to separate. I don't mind fighting in court for however many years it takes. But if it comes to that, won't it be tough to pay for court fees when we have a child? In that case, it's probably better to continue our married life as it is.
When I heard my husband say that, I realized something. He was probably trying to mentally wear me down so that I would eventually agree to give up child support and property division voluntarily. I absolutely did not want to do that. But continuing to live with my husband was also difficult. I had reached my limit with his constant verbal abuse. Then I thought of a forbidden revenge plan. About 3 months later, one day, I brought up divorce to my husband as usual. However, what was different this time was that I had a secret weapon that could allow me to get a divorce while placing the blame on him. So you were having an affair. Let's get a divorce.
What did you say?
My husband was speechless as he looked at the evidence I had spread out on the table. You'll be paying a lot in compensation. So, be prepared.
How did you find out?
Bad things always get found out. Just admit your wrongdoing quietly. Anyway, let's handle everything through lawyers from now on. I left my husband, who was frozen with a pale face, and packed my bags while giving him a side glance. Then, I received compensation and requested child support. It seems that my ex-husband was reluctant to pay, but my lawyer pursued the request. Thanks to that, I was able to receive full payment in installments. After that, I took maternity leave and gave birth in my hometown. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. My parents were very happy to meet their grandchild. My ex-husband apparently planned to remarry his affair partner, but for some reason, he was immediately rejected. I received a message from my ex-husband saying that he wanted to get back together, but I laughed while looking at the message with a certain person. The person was Cindy, who had once competed for my ex-husband's girlfriend position. Actually, I contacted Cindy as revenge against my ex-husband. I told her all about my ex-husband's true nature and asked for her cooperation. Surprisingly, Cindy enthusiastically participated in the plan. Actually, my father was a terrible man and was like Bill. He relied on my mother's income and was a freeloader who didn't work. Listening to your story made me angry, as it reminded me of my father. Cindy no longer had an aggressive attitude like before and understood my story and situation well. Then Cindy seduced Bill and created a fake romantic relationship that was enough to be evidence of their affair. Baby, my grandfather was a big landowner, and he was actually quite wealthy in the local area. Cindy reportedly used that to appeal to Bill. As a result, my ex-husband thought that he could not only live an easy life, but also marry a beautiful young woman. Thanks to that, I was able to gather evidence of their affair and divorce Bill. I can't thank Cindy enough for her cooperation in this forbidden revenge. On the other hand, Cindy also thanked me. I feel like I was able to get revenge on my father through this, you know? It felt really refreshing. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Aliyah. After that, we promised each other to find a good partner next time, and we shook hands firmly. Then, I returned to my parents' house and raised my child with their support.
I am truly happy that I get to spend time with my daughter every day. By the way, there was a reason why I had little savings at that time. Before I got married to my husband, I had purchased an apartment for real estate investment, and I had paid almost all the money at that time, which is why I had little savings. Currently, I earn a considerable amount of money from rental income and my job at a large corporation. I plan to save this money carefully for my daughter's future education and my retirement. For now, I want to take good care of my daughter while being grateful to my parents.